Do you want to hear from a veteran non-performing note investor who went through the crisis last time and did quite well and what he's looking at now? You're going to want to stay tuned. Well, welcome back. We are here again with NoteSchool TV, like we are every single Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time. So make sure you're joining us. Hey, as always, these videos are meant to provide the best content in this space, bring some subject matter experts in to help you understand not only can you do this, you can really thrive in today's marketplace. And so if this is of value to you, go out and like this video right now. Just go click that little button right there. And if you're really wanting more of this content, just simply go and hit the subscribe button. That way in your feed, you'll consistently be able to get these videos as they come out. And if you really want to participate, you really want the most up-to-date information, you got to hit that bell button. It's a little bell, you click it, and it will notify you on your device. Hey, they're going live. That means I need to take a break, jump on real quick, and ask all these questions that I've been saving up for a whole week. And so make sure you're going and doing that. We've got a fantastic show planned out with a pretty incredible guest. I think you'll be very, very amazed at really what is possible in this space. And so for those of you who are brand new to this space, maybe you're brand new to Notes, maybe you're even brand new to NoteSchool. But the reality is, if you're trying to figure out what that next step is for you, go out to noteschool.com/TV to learn a little bit more and figure out what your next step is so that you can start reaching some of these goals and really kind of even creatively copying what some of these other successful people are doing. As always, we're going to have an after party at the very end. So when the show's over, the show's not over. We're going to hang around with our guests, answer your questions, have it be a little bit more casual, and obviously make sure we're engaging with you. And speaking of engaging, here's what I want to do. First of all, say hi. I'd love to hear from where you're from and where you're at today, and just say hello. It's always nice to have everybody engaging, and make sure you're commenting throughout the show. If you hear something that resonates with you, man, we'd love to hear about that. If you've got questions, type those in. And if you know another investor or maybe a family member who could really use this information, there's a share button, and you can share this video. It just grabs a link and you can text it right over, and it alerts them that, hey, you should jump on and check this out too. And that way, if they need to, they can go watch what they've missed. As always, like I said, we've got a killer show. I'm super excited about this one. But before we get to our guest, we've got to talk about the latest in the news with Joe.
Right.
Mr. Joe Varnadore.
Yeah, good to have you back, man. We missed you the last couple of weeks.
Hey, I'm here now and I'm excited.
Made a big move, man. That's wonderful. Moved to Denver, right?
That's right. That's right. I'm here now. So what do we got going in the marketplace today?
Well, man? Let's talk about interest rates, right, Brian? We've been talking about all summer about how rates continue to fall, right? So again, they continue to fall below the 3% margin week after week after week, down again this past week from 2.88 to 2.77 on the 30-year fixed, and then on the 15-year fixed rate, we're looking at, a 15-year low at 2.10, and it looks like today it's going to be about 2.02, right? So wow. Rates are continuing to fall, but interestingly enough, Brian, the Fed officials say tapering is near and advancing discussions on a rate hike, right?
Okay.
So what does that mean, man? So it means that the Fed has been buying for the last, couple of years, about $120 billion a month in bonds, right? So they can keep the interest rates very low. But they're talking about rates starting to climb back up. And but interestingly enough, Brian, when they talk about rates tapering going away, where the Fed's not buying and putting money back into the marketplace there, they're talking about that being late 2022. right? So
Wow.
rates are where they are. Of course, the guys from the Fed, the Atlanta Fed and the Virginia Fed and all of that are going through, and they're having the big meetings there. But they're looking at inflation, which they say is now under control. The job market is getting back down to where it needs to be. So more on this, but I thought it was pretty interesting that they keep falling, but they are going to go up, but it's going to be next fall. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's fantastic. Well, hey, listen, I know we had a little bit of an issue with sharing the news articles. And so for those of you interested, we're going to grab those links and we'll put them in the comments after the show. So if you'd like to go read those articles, you absolutely can.
Okay, did not know you could not see those, but yes, I will make sure we get them out there, right?
Not a problem, Joe. Anything else before we bring on our fearless leader?
Let's bring on our fearless leader, head visionary, Mr. Eddie Speed.
Hey, guys.
How we doing?
Awesome.
Oh, it's so good to see you.
So, yeah, rates are the lowest that they've been since I've been in the business and started in 1980.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. When I started in the business in 1980, mortgage rates were 18%, Brian.
Man, they're so low, you're thinking about borrowing something, huh?
Crazy market.
Yeah.
Man, speaking of crazy markets, we have a guest today that started with me in Note School in a crazy market. A crazy market. And he was a rock star. He did really good. Love this dude. And he is, you know what? He's pretty fired up. He's been watching Note School TV, Brian. And he's been seeing what we've been talking about on the inventory side. And so we got him on here today, and we're going to talk a little bit about his history, which is a great story. And then we're going to talk about his look forward. So without any further ado, Mr. Justin Wagner.
How's it going, Eddie?
Hey,
How's
man.
it going, Joe? It's great to see you.
Love that scene. So that is literally the back of your office is this beautiful river.
Yeah, we had a little office relocation here in 2021. So I'm in our office down by the river.
That's great. Yeah. Well, there's an old skit on Saturday Night Live about being in a van by the river, and I think that office probably is a better spot, right?
Yeah, a little bit better spot.
We're going to bring the crew up there, and we're going to come stay with you for a few days, and let's get out on that river, right?
Hey, that'd be a great time. The lady across the river is catching catfish bigger than my legs, so hopefully I can get into some of those at some point. So
yeah. So Justin, I think it's helpful. So let's go back before you met me just a little bit, right? Let's go back to a little bit of your background before you entered the note space. Talk about what that is, and then we'll kind of go forward.
Well, Eddie, we started out as an engineer at an aerospace company. Took the opportunity to move back home and start focusing on the real estate business. Had good credit back then and was able to buy houses on credit cards. And the money was real easy back in those days, and we were able to refinance. So essentially, we would buy an old house on a credit card, refinance it with credit card, or fix it up with credit card money, and then be able to go to the bank and refinance it, recharge the credit cards, and do it again. We slogged away, did that for maybe 5 years or so, and built up a pretty nice portfolio. And we started originating land contracts. I don't know if some of the audience remembers back of the first-time home buyer tax credit, but you were able to get that tax credit. The home buyer would qualify with the land contract if it was originated correctly. And I wasn't 100% sure that I was originating the land contracts correctly. So we used an old boilerplate land contract, and we knew how to get the credit from the IRS, and that's how we did it. Kind of bootstrapped it and kind of did our own thing. Made me really nervous, and we have a fantastic AREA organization here in Ohio, and I believe it's one of the best in the nation. And we usually every year we would go and we would pick up a new program about every year. And that year I saw that you were doing the note thing and the mortgage thing. I thought there could be a lot to learn there, and I could probably figure out if I'm doing this right or wrong. And if I was doing it wrong, I figured you could probably set me straight one way or another. So went to your module there at the AREA, and you did a couple of your rope tricks there back. And we ended up going to your seminar back in 2009. So it's been quite a while ago, but it's been life-changing.
Yeah, it's funny. Like your original attraction was you came to Note School because you were trying to learn, make sure you were doing your seller financing correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, you got introduced to a dimension that you really hadn't considered, which was buying defaulted loans. Right?
That is correct. I'd never considered being able to buy the loans. Of course, we're all trained to look for the REO and try to buy maybe REO from the bank, but to actually go buy defaulted mortgages, how would you even do that? I mean, there's really no education out there at the time to be able to even navigate that to where you would even have the courage or the fortitude to even try something like that. So, but of course, Note School, that's sure helped out that. So.
Well, everything morphs, and I had been in the non-performing business heavily back in the 80s and in the 1990s. So I really was bringing back something that was kind of old school for me. Now you're looking at kind of re-entering the non-performing note space again. Think about it. This is something that you started, 12 years ago. Now you're bringing back some old stuff, and there'll be always things that are new, and we're going to talk about that. Back then, we didn't have a lot of efficiency in delivering notes to our students, right? I knew how to find them, but it was kind of hard to find them, right, Justin?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Trying to find the inventory, cold calling hedge funds and trying to figure it out yourself. I'm just a small town landlord, real estate investor. To get on the phone and to try to make these contacts is, almost impossible to do. And even tougher nowadays.
So back then, we didn't have Notes Direct.
Right.
And so we didn't have the efficiency that somebody has today. When Justin was first proved this model out really well, did super great with it, it was a lot harder for it to do it because it was so different. As he said, you're on the phone literally calling hedge funds. And I'll tell you a funny story. Justin literally, no kidding, called me one day and said, I don't believe this will work. I don't believe that these hedge funds will really deal with me. And I had enough relationship with him as a coach that I just kind of pushed him through it a little bit, right? He was a great student and I loved him dearly. And so I could kind of just push him through it. And then all of a sudden he came out the other side and he did crack the code and found a couple of hedge funds. You remember that, Justin?
Yeah. That was an exciting time. Yeah, that was there's a lot.
I remember the story about one of the first notes you bought on the house that had a little bit of fire damage in the kitchen, and you made a bunch of money on it. And you go, "Oh my God!" Right?
Oh, right. And then there was the 100-acre, the lady with the 100-acre farm with 1 acre cut out of it, and we bought the mobile home and land, and she had an easement that went off the side of the property, and after talking to her, she was kind of a little worried of who we might put in there. So but she was a little motivated buyer. So we motivated her a little bit.
I remember, Justin, essentially the first crack, the first deals, the very first ones, you bought 4 notes for $25,000. Correct?
That is correct, Eddie.
Borrowed money from a private investor, and you got the private investor paid back, and that put you on a trajectory that you later did, no kidding, hundreds of deals, right?
Right. We started out, we met an investor through NoteSchool. You introduced us to an investor who dealt REO, and we bought 2 REO properties from him, and we were able to refinance it. I know $25,000, it sounds like a little pittance of money, but money was a lot harder to come by back then, for us anyway. And we used that $25,000 to buy. Actually, we had $50,000, so we had $25,000 to buy the portfolio, and then $25,000 to work the portfolio. Well, 2 of the loans, the non-performing loans in the portfolio, there were 4 total. 2 of those loans were local in our county, and we were able to knock on the door and get a deed in lieu within a week. Took us a week to market it. A week later, after the title search was done, or we found the buyer after a week, the title search was done in another week, and we closed. And literally in 3 weeks, we had our $25,000 back. That was just the first loan. The second loan, the lady we reworked the loan, and she paid us $500 per month for the last 10 years. She just refinanced it last summer for $50,000, paid us the $50,000 back. And then we had another loan that we hold as a rental here in town, and it pays us $450 a month and has since I think that was 2011. And then there was another REO that we got the deed in lieu, and we got $7,000 out of it and sold it quick. So we used that money, parlayed it, and kept parlaying the money and letting it ride, and yeah, it was quite a run.
You blazed a trail, because, as I said, it was difficult back then. The kind of non-performing notes and the way you would find non-performing notes and kind of the degree of difficulty in doing them, Justin, isn't what it was back then.
Right.
Today, so many of these loans, Justin, are equitable. The lenders only owed $200,000 and the house is worth $300,000. Well, somebody else is going to buy it at the foreclosure, and you don't have to fool with selling the property.
Right.
That wasn't true back in your early days, right?
That's exactly right. We had to take it through the entire foreclosure process, and we bought back most, if not all, of the REO.
So when you went to foreclosure, you ended up with the property.
That is correct. Yep.
Yeah.
And then and what we did, we're rehabbers at heart, so we would go to all these different cities across America and try to do our own rehab. So now we have rentals in South Bend and North Carolina and Cleveland, Toledo, Canton, all over God's creation. So, but I don't know. It's probably time to note those out, I think. So
I would say that today is probably going to be a good day to carry owner financing on a lot of property.
I think you're right, Eddie.
And also for tax reasons, stretching out your capital gain over time and not paying it all up front. So Justin has become great friends with us. You've been to dozens and dozens of NoteSchool events. And you were a great encouragement to students that were starting, back in, many years ago and stuff. But then non-performing notes kind of dried up, Justin.
They certainly did.
And so, but you were busy and you had a portfolio and it was a good. And I actually got to know your whole family, your brother, your dad, your kids. I mean, it's really been a great story. And guess what happened, Joe, about January of this year?
Yeah. Things started to come to fruition, right?
Yeah, we started seeing Justin again. He started hearing stories about these non-performing notes.
Yeah, you pop up on those Tuesday calls, and yeah, that's right.
So it is. We are pretty fired up about the inventory today, and as I said, generally speaking, it's not going to be as many steps, Justin, as you used to have to go through.
Oh, I know, Eddie. I just took down a couple REO off of Notes Direct here in the past month, and I'm just surprised that and I mean, this is, no BS. These deals on there I'm not sure how they lasted so long. So they were kind of right down the road for me, just an hour or two away. So Bob kind of nudged me a little bit, and I took a peek at them, and very surprised. So we're working those two deals out right now. So as we speak.
And you had a local bank that you bought some defaulted loans from too?
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, there was kind of a loan portfolio, but same borrower, and probably 20 units total spread over 7 properties. Basically what happened is there was a landlord. He lived in a nice house on Buckeye Lake, and he didn't like Trump very much. So he was showing up to Antifa rallies and flashing his Glock at the Antifa rallies and putting it on Facebook. So the FBI didn't like that too much, and gave him a 18-month vacation over in the pen in West Virginia. So I know, Eddie. These stories don't end. They're you've heard my stories. They're
Never a dull moment, right? So he couldn't pay, right? So
Joe, I gotta tell you this crazy story. So I don't know. This is maybe 2010, and we had a class in Los Angeles. It was a big class. Most of our classes are, call it, like there'll be like 60 to 100 people in attendance, but there was like 175 people in this class. And so here's Justin from Zanesville, Ohio, right? And we're out there in Los Angeles, and Justin has story after story after story. He's killed it, right? He has got case studies, gazoo. You remember this, Justin?
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
Tell him what you did. It's too funny.
Not a lot of people out in LA know Zanesville, Ohio. So, but we'd recently made some national news, so I thought it might be a couple people in the audience that might know where I was from. But there was a fella that he owned exotic animals. So, and he's actually on the Joe Exotic show on Netflix or whatever that guy was. But this guy, so he had about 50 exotic animals: lions, tigers, bears, monkeys, all kinds of sorts of stuff. Well, he got in a little trouble with the ATF over some gun dealing, and he was about a week or two away from his indictment, and he decided to kill himself. So, but before he did that, he opened up all the cages of his animals, and these animals were running rampant through our county. And I went to football practice one morning to lifting, and the lifting coach shows us a picture of a cheetah on the side of the road, on the side of Route 40, which runs parallel to I-70. And it just, so they ended up killing 14 tigers and numerous bears, monkey. There's still a monkey out on the loose. So they counted for everything but a monkey. So
they were trying to trap these things, and if they couldn't trap them, you could imagine the only other choice was they had to kill them. So it's all in the national news, like all the time, right? And so Justin says, Justin says, "Hey man, here he is in Los Angeles, California, and he goes, hey man, I'm from Little Town, Ohio, but you might know who we are because of this." And I'm like,
yeah. Sometimes I speak before I think. So I wasn't really considering the whole the setting.
Oh, it was funny. This guy is a good guy. He is really his success story has been a great inspiration. He just comes from a hardworking family, and they were very rehabber, worker minded, hardworking people. But I think we gave him a little bit of a vantage point of making more money with a pencil than you can with a hammer. And that's and he was a great student because he did it well.
Yeah, and something I'd like to add to that, Eddie, is part of that non-performing thing that we do. I mean, yeah, we make money. That's great and everything like that. But a lot of these neighborhoods where we bought these non-performing loans, these houses were the cornerstone of the blight of the neighborhood, of the street. These houses have sat for years, 3, 4, 5 years vacant, run down, or a borrower that just didn't care, or once we got those, we were able to process that REO, that property. We were able to fix it up. We were able to bring it back on the tax roll, pay up all the taxes. And I kind of feel like we kind of revamped the lower income communities of America, or not even the lower income, many of the working class and regular communities there. I think we provided an awesome service, and we made a profit too. So.
The neighbors loved you because you bought the house that needed the repairs and you fixed it and made it a good house. So great story. Justin, can you hang around with us? We're gonna have a little after party and we'll have some folks that have some questions and stuff.
Absolutely. I'll be here.
All right, Mr. Joe, take us to the next part.
All right, guys, we are going to jump in and talk about our sponsor, Notes Direct, and Feeding Frenzy Friday.
That is right. We absolutely are going to talk about this. Yes, the show is sponsored. NoteSchool TV is sponsored by both Notes Direct and Feeding Frenzy Friday. Notes Direct is really a place you could go to buy notes. It was mentioned just a couple of times in the show, and it's a source where you can go and find inventory, much different than when the last non-performing craze was kind of going on. And so this is a pretty big advantage. And so if you're somebody who's trying to figure out really, well, how do I analyze this and what does this look like? And how do I get great at this? That's what this playlist is all about. You can go to the YouTube channel for NoteSchool and click on the playlist called Feeding Frenzy Friday. This is a playlist where each week, a note veteran of 30 years almost, and I break down a note from Notes Direct. We really talk about the pros and the cons and the due diligence and several different variables, whether it's a performing note, a non-performing note, whatever it is, to help you better understand what you should be looking at, ultimately give you the confidence and help you take those next steps so that you can go click the buy button, because you can click and buy a note as easy as you can buy anything on Amazon. And so, or whatever website you shop on, right? And so it's a really fascinating way to get engaged, and it's ultimately something to help progress you a lot faster. And so it's a great way to get involved. If you haven't heard about it, make sure you check out our sponsor. And as always, hey, we're going to keep talking about this stuff. This is something we talk about every single Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time. So make sure you're joining us. You know, the easiest way to do that, it's literally going and clicking subscribe right now. Like literally scroll your eyes down, click that subscribe button. And if you really want to make sure you're notified, because sometimes we forget, I've been known to forget a thing or two, click that bell notification. That bell is going to remind you, it'll send an alert to your phone. Hey, in 30 minutes, they're going to be going live. jump on board, get involved. And if you're trying to figure out, hey, I love the show, I love the content, make sure you're liking the videos, but you need a little bit more, here's 2 things you can do. The first thing is this: go to noteschool.com/TV, and you can learn a little bit more about who we are, what we do, how you can get involved, really ultimately help you take those next steps. But if you're somebody who's like, yeah, but I'm currently in a deal, I need help, and I need some guidance, or I need some questions answered that are just frustrating me, just simply go to noteschool.com. There's a contact us tab. And if you click that, you can put your information out. We've got several people on the team who can reply back to you or give you a call if you need it, and we'll help you move forward. As always, it's great to do this show. It's some really quality content. I think in the after party here in just a minute, we're going to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit more and kind of explain why this is such an interesting story. Some of us, it hasn't quite clicked yet on why is this such a big deal. And so if you can hang around, we'll plan on seeing you on the other side. If we can't, hey, have a great rest of your week. Have a great week, and we'll plan on seeing you next Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time. For the rest of you, stick around. We'll see you on the other side. All right. Justin, hey, thanks so much for joining us. My favorite part of the show is that there's scenery that keeps changing, right?
I know.
And so,
Justin looks like he's been hitting the gym there a little bit too, right?
Oh yeah, trying to eat a little better nowadays. So
yeah, I love it. Well, there was a couple of things mentioned in the show that I think are super important, because we've got seasoned investors on this show chiming in right now, and we've got people who are trying to figure out, man, I love what he's talking about. I kind of understand non-performing notes, but how do I go out and I buy 4 for $25,000? And so I really want to better clarify a couple things, because I heard you say a couple of items. I've heard Eddie say it and Joe say it before. And I really want to make sure that there's a really clear picture of why this time is so lucrative for a guy who's bought hundreds of notes. Now you're on hundreds of non-performing notes, and now you're coming back for more. That clearly tells us there's an opportunity here. But something that I want to start with is Eddie mentioned this time is different. And he used the phrase, there's equity, right, in these properties. And so let's start with Eddie, kind of chime in and just talk about, what does this mean for the speed to which I can get to my profits?
Well, when I started buying non-performing notes, and that was probably in 1986, and then I bought them through that era, and later became the government selling loans, Resolution Trust Corporation. What was happening is real estate values were falling. Loan balances were going up. So every time we'd see a deal, the real estate was worth this and the loan balance was this, meaning that when you went to foreclosure, you got the property back. Your attorney was bidding for you as the lender more than anybody else would bid. That was true a lot, and mostly in the 1990s as well. And then by 2008, Justin was buying assets like in Ohio and Indiana. Now, man, you're talking about a real estate slide. Boom, right? It was going down like crazy, and then loan balances were doing this. So every time Justin would buy a non-performing note, it was almost a guarantee that he was going to end up with the property itself. Right.
And that's why he kept mentioning REOs, right? You were the bank, you own the loan, right? And
REO stood for real estate owned. Yeah. So that's right. So this era is different because these loans, because here's what's happening. What's crazy is real estate values have been doing this. The loan balances are going up because they're not paying, but not near at the same rate. Right. The property is increased. So Justin, talk about that, because you had to be the guy that had to do 100 different things to make a non-performing note work. What's it like now when you don't have to do so many things?
Well, that's interesting you bring that up. We just had 2 properties go to the foreclosure auction that went higher than the amount owed, and and I guess that excess might to pay the other mortgage balances. But, when I was talking to the attorney about that, he said he's never seen this ever in his life. And he's been doing foreclosures for, 30, 40 years. So it's a really neat anomaly in the market right now. So
I don't know if you remember Darren Bloomquist. He used to be with Realty Track and wrote several articles. Actually, had been to some Note School events.
Right.
But he used to be with Realty Track, and he used to write articles and was on TV all the time and stuff. He now is with auction.com.
Right.
And Joe and Brian had him. This is a week I was off somewhere, but Joe and Brian had Darren on. I don't know. It's been maybe a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, now one of auction.com's biggest thing is conducting foreclosure sales. And they've seen this gigantic increase where a third party is buying the property at foreclosure, outbidding what the lender is owed. And so, Justin, I believe this is the new norm.
Yeah. It absolutely could be. And what's really fascinating about it for those who, if you feel like you're missing something, what we're talking about is when something gets foreclosed on, if you're owed $100,000 and it sells for $120,000, well, you're just going to get paid off, which means you don't have to go through this process of, well, now I get a house and what do I do with the house? And should I renovate it? Should I put a tenant? Should I find a buyer? It's saving you a lot of time. And so the time value of money element of this means you get your profit a lot faster, which means you can turn your capital over faster and faster. And if you haven't watched, we did a Note School TV 1 or 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry, I'm a little confused on the time frame, with a fund manager who talks about the non-performing elements. So go back and check out the playlist of all of these Note School TVs, so you can be listening to Chaz Quinn talk about how big this opportunity is. Turning your capital over faster is ultimately going to lead you to, obviously, a lot more profits. So it's really, really big. The other element I really wanted to ask you about, Justin, is you said a phrase that I think that the people in the note business know this word real well, but I feel like a lot of other investors don't know this word, because I'd bought a lot of houses before I heard the word blighted, right? And I don't know if it's just a note thing or what, but a lot of people don't understand blighted property. And after a 10-year or more run up of the market going up and houses raising in value, which means people are probably fixing up their homes. Tell us a little bit about what blighted property is and why what you bought in 2008, 9, and 10 might be different than what you're buying today.
Well, a lot of the borrowers, a good portion of the borrowers from the portfolios that we've bought would just simply abandon the property. They didn't. I don't think they really understood that they could have stayed. They felt that since they didn't make their payment, they had to absolutely move right then. So they'd move in with a family member. They would go get a rental. They thought that the bank was just going to come and throw them out on the doorstep. So this house might sit for a year, 2 years, 3 years, sometimes 5, 6, 7 years with nothing done to it. The neighbor wouldn't be able to call anybody. The city would keep racking up the taxes, but they're 3, 4, 5 years away before they could do tax foreclosure. So these houses would literally fall apart, and it really hurts the perception of the street, the neighborhood, and it has that trickle effect. And in today's market, I just, with the property values rising, that just doesn't seem to be happening nearly as much. I know in my community, it's the blight. The blight doesn't really happen nearly as often. Not completely eradicated, but you just don't see it as much anymore.
Yeah. And Joe, if the houses aren't as distressed, as vacant, what does this mean when it comes time to a foreclosure, right? If the property value has gone up, the house isn't near as in bad condition, doesn't that just reinforce what Eddie was just saying?
Yeah, absolutely. The value of the house, again, you've got a house that the borrower owes, that the house is worth 200, they owe 80, but there is a legal collectible balance on it that makes the balance really, $100,000. It's going to sell at auction, right? I mean, it's not gonna go back. And again, as you said, it may be 30, 60, 90 days, but you're paid and you're just rolling that money over. And when you're turning it over, and guys, people aren't going to walk away from $100,000 in equity, right? So they're either going to sell the house and and it's going to sell very quickly because of the way the market is working. or somebody else is going to buy it and they're going to bid it up. And, Darren told us, you and I, Brian, at auction.com, it's again, somewhere between 115 and 125% of value over and above. So it's turning it over, and the blighted property, just it's not even a thing right there. Now, we took that out of our vocabulary, right, Eddie?
Let me just generally say this. Justin bought hundreds of these assets. I could have described to you virtually every one of them. They were all houses probably less valued at less than 100 grand.
Right.
They all needed repairs. There was just, that was in that era, the loans that he was able to buy at a good discount. That's what the collateral was. The loans today that he's able to buy at a good discount are a way more valuable piece of collateral in a way more, call it, desirable neighborhood. It's just a different asset class. Now, will that stay forever? Let me say something. Timing is everything. And to me, right now, the timing of jumping in non-performing notes is today. Just people like Justin, and we have a pretty good herd of those people coming back to Note School to help them with that. It's a market opportunity, and somebody like Justin gets it. Right, Justin?
That's exactly right, Eddie.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's what I want everybody to, as we kind of wrap up this show, I want everybody to really grasp that markets go in cycles, right? It's been going like this for 10 years. I think we're all on the same page. We've said it multiple times. It's not going to do this another 10 years. And a part of the market cycle is an opportunity for investors who have a specialized knowledge on what to do with this. And one of the parts that I love about Justin's story is his realization of yes, you can make a lot of money doing this, but you got to realize there's not a better way to go out and help people doing this. These are people who they're in a tough part of their life, and maybe they can't afford to fix up their house or whatever it is. And you're able to not just turn around people's lives, you're able to turn around entire communities sometimes. And so it's something you got to get involved doing. Justin, thank you so much for spending some time with us. We really do appreciate it. It's really encouraging to know that an investor could go out and buy hundreds of non-performing notes like that. It's a possibility thing, right? We put these limiting beliefs on ourselves that say, well, I don't know that I could do this. And you're just proof that you can. But what I want to encourage everybody with is if you want to buy 5, 10, hundreds of non-performing, it starts with one. And so for those of you who are trying to figure out what that needs to look like for you and your business, man, I can't encourage you enough to go to noteschool.com/TV to really start digging into really what this content and education level is going to look like for you so that you can participate in this market opportunity. Because like Eddie said, hey, it's here. It's here. We've been talking about it for, almost like 15 months. I mean, people are starting to wonder if Eddie's kind of crazy, but you know what? 40 years of business, I think the guy knows something, and so we're here now. And so again, thanks to everybody who stuck around in the after party. It's always great to have you. Justin, really, again, appreciate you spending some time with us. It means a lot to the audience and it means a lot to me. And so, man, wish you the best. Have a great day. And for everybody else, we will see you next Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time on Note School TV. We'll catch you later.
All right. Thanks, fellas.